Spectrovision Radio.
But the most astonishing thing, and whenever I saw this, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. This is crazy. So when I did the sidereal astrology reading on 3i Atlas at its perihelion on October 30th, as it's closest to the sun, it came back at 0 degrees Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is already the most mysterious sign. It basically, in this context, is reflective of death and rebirth, and why I said at the beginning about the apocalypse. The apocalypse literally means like dropping of the veil. It's basically when secrets are exposed, and that's what Scorpio represents in this sense, is that transformation, that time period where we're gonna go through a collective shadow work period, basically a spiritual awakening for the masses. And when you have a spiritual awakening, I had one, they can be intense. It's not all, roses and rainbows, because you basically realize that you've been lied to. You realize that most of the things that you believed aren't true. And maybe they're not true with like organic purposes, like people just didn't know any better, or we just went down the wrong path. And sometimes they're not true because you were like intentionally manipulated and lied to. And all of this comes flooding in when you have a sort of like a Kundalini type spiritual awakening, and it just blows the top off like a jack in the box erupting. Then all of a sudden you realize so much of what you hung your hat on, so much what you thought was real and you could trust and it was stable and reliable isn't true. It doesn't matter if we're talking about schools or religions or government or belief systems or ideologies or anything. You start to question everything. You don't trust anything, and you go through a dark night of the soul period. And then on the other side of that, you have your initiation, your awakening, and life gets better, but it gets dark for a bit. And that's exactly what the apocalypse is this dropping of the veil, exposing of lies, and basically shining light on the dark. And when you do this at an individual level, it's messy. When you do this at a civilization-wide level, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens. But I think we might be close to finding out, because hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Conscious Observers. Today's episode is going to shock the world. This is going to send out shockwaves, because we're going to talk about 3i Atlas, the thing everyone's talking about, but we're going to talk about it in a way that I guarantee you no one else is talking about. You're going to learn so many things that are so exciting, and that will change the way that you look at reality, our place in the universe, and this event that is coming up. Because 3i Atlas is a big deal. It is a huge deal. It will change the world, but not in the way that you think, and not in the way people are telling you. So please watch this episode until the end, because some of the things we talk about aren't going to really click until you get all the information. And then you'll be like, ha, now I get it. Now I get it. So watch the whole thing, and please share it with everybody you know. Let's get this information out there, because we got some things coming up, guys, and it's going to get spicy real quick. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about what is 3i Atlas real quick. 3i Atlas is, it seems, right? There's still a lot of speculation out there. A lot of people have a lot of wild theories about 3i Atlas, but it seems to be a comet. It seems to be a comet from outside of our solar system. So it's an interstellar comet. That's why they call it 3i. So the 3i means third interstellar object. The Atlas part is because it was discovered by the Atlas Observatory. So basically, Atlas is this NASA system. It's actually multiple observatories that scan the night sky constantly, looking for threats. It's a threat detection system for Earth. And it knows what the sky looks like. It knows where everything is. Everything out there is mapped and pretty predictable. But every once in a while, something pops up that's not supposed to be there. And it scans the sky multiple times, the entire sky, multiple times a night, looking for anything that's out of place. And it locks onto it because it wants to see if it's a threat to us. So thank God it's out there doing its job. And it locked onto this. And it said, whoa, that's not supposed to be there. And everyone started studying it. So that's why it's called 3i Atlas, third interstellar object, and it was spotted by Atlas. Okay, so since then, we've been able to get a lot more information from it and figure out sort of kind of what this thing is and where it came from. So it's a little bit of a misnomer to say it's a third interstellar object. It's the third interstellar object that we have observed, and this is only going back to 2017. And we actually found this one by mistake. We weren't looking for it. Atlas found it, and Atlas is a pretty new system. So these things happen pretty often. So don't let anyone fool you and say that this is only the third time this has ever happened in the history of the world. It's the third time it's happened in 8 years, and we haven't really been looking for it, and we're just now getting sensitive enough sensors to actually find these things because they're incredibly fast and they're incredibly far away. The solar system and the universe is gigantic, okay? So most comets come from two places. They come from our Kuiper belt and the Oort field, the Oort cloud. So most people don't know this, but it's super fascinating. So like outside of our solar system, like on the, like on the outer rings, there's this thing called a Kuiper belt. And a lot of people think it might have been like an exploded planet or something like that. It's just like millions and millions of, asteroids and rocks and icy bodies and that kind of stuff that just form this ring, right? And it's in sort of the elliptical of our solar system. And then, but it's a disk, okay? It's a disk. And sometimes those objects do come through here, and those are where we get most of our asteroids and comets and stuff like that. Zoom out even further, all the way outside of the heliosphere. So the heliosphere is like the membrane bubble that keeps our solar system contained. It's like the cell membrane. It's super cool. It's where our solar wind from the sun hits the, like, kind of the intergalactic plasma jet stream of the universe, and that resistance forms this boundary line, and that's sort of the cell membrane of our solar system. Now, right outside of that is what's called the Oort cloud, which is billions and billions and billions of basically comets, rocky and icy bodies that form this like shell. It's almost like a protective outer shell of our solar system, right? It's not solid, of course, because everything's moving and everything's very spaced out because everything's huge out there. But we do have this like sort of invisible membrane, the heliosphere, and then we have this rocky membrane, which is the Oort cloud. So most of our comets and stuff come from those two places, and we track them and we know where they are, and they're very predictable. But what makes 3i Atlas super cool is it came from out of there. It came from somewhere else, right? Somewhere far, far away. And so it's interstellar. It's not bound. Like even the Oort cloud, even though it's outside of the heliosphere, is still locked by the sun's gravity. So that's why it forms a circle, like a cocoon around us. But so 3i Atlas came from out of there, okay? So it's the third one that we have studied. The first one was Oumuamua in 2017, and then we had Borisov in 2019. So let's get into what I think is the significance of this. And we're going to use those last two events to kind of dive a little deeper into the cultural impacts of these things. And then I'm going to completely blow your mind because I'm going to do a sidereal astrology reading on 3i Atlas and show you why it is going to be very transformative for our society, for our Earth, for each individual human, and for our trajectory moving forward. This is going to be the dropping of the veil. This is the collective shadow work. This is, in some instances, Armageddon, the apocalypse. The apocalypse literally means dropping of the veil. It means to expose what has been hidden. And I'm going to show you in my reading for 3i Atlas exactly why the data shows that this is the beginning of that event. This is the beginning of the official Great Awakening. And it is beyond fascinating and a little bit scary, but let's get into it. So we had Oumuamua come through in 2017. And it was the first time we had ever really observed and locked on to an interstellar object. And Avi Loeb got real famous because he was saying that it was an alien mothership coming to invade us, or that it could hypothetically be. And of course it wasn't. He said that it intelligently changed course, but it didn't. It changed course because it does something called outgassing when it gets close to the sun. And we'll talk about that. So we had 2017 was Oumuamua, 2019 Borisov. Now, right after Oumuamua happened, we had it had its perihelion in October. And then in December, I believe, is when the New York Times article dropped, basically laying out the fact that aliens are real and that our government has multiple, secret projects that are investigating aliens and UFOs, and they take extraterrestrials and interdimensionals very, very seriously and spend our tax money looking into this and cataloging all the different, ships and beings and encounters and all this kind of stuff, right? So all this stuff was sort of laid out at that point. That was when the official disclosure movement started, because we had the New York Times, mainstream media come out and say, hey, look, here's pictures supposedly of a UFO captured from, these F-16, readouts. We had David Fravor and all those, Ryan Graves and all those very respectable people come out and say, yes, that they have been engaging with UFOs. They have been in sort of dogfights with them, that this is all cataloged and that the government knows about it, and there's tons of other stuff, right? So this all happened when that New York Times article came out and basically blew the lid off of all these secret programs that we were told for decades didn't exist, and this was all BS, conspiracy theory stuff. Now all of a sudden, the New York Times is bringing receipts and presenting this information to a gigantic worldwide audience, right? And this started the modern day disclosure movement, which we're in the throes of right now. It's a big deal. It made normal people start thinking, oh, maybe we're not alone. Maybe there's something out there, right? This all happened directly after Oumuamua came through. And leading up to it, Avi Loeb is out there telling the world that there's a possibility that Oumuamua was going to be an alien probe or an alien mothership or something like that. He was at least laying out the possibility that this is what this is. So it started opening people's minds. So okay, maybe this is, maybe this is an alien ship, right? Maybe we should pay attention to this. And it turned out not to be, but it opened people's minds to that. And then directly afterwards, the New York Times article came out, and then that sort of just carried that sentiment forward, because people were already more receptive to that possibility. And then all of a sudden, this article comes out and all these whistleblowers come out and all this stuff, and we're like, whoa, so it was a big deal, okay? So those two situations, those two timelines are linked. Okay, so then go to Borisov in 2019, 2 years later, almost exact same timeline, because it was in December with Borisov when it went through its perihelion. And when it went through its perihelion, right after that, I mean, I'm talking days, some people will say what, weeks, especially officially. What happened? What happened at the beginning of 2020? COVID. And even though COVID had a lot of negative effects, right? I'm not saying COVID was a fun time or anything, but the after effects from it have been immense. I mean, we had a spiritual awakening. I had a meditation studio. Me and my wife ran a meditation studio. We opened it in 2020. And we had so many people come in, because it was a metaphysical meditation studio. So many people came in and were like, I'm having an awakening, right? Because what COVID did is it made them start thinking and asking questions and not trusting. They're like, I don't think I can trust the government, right? And it's like, ding. And then they're like, well, if they're lying to me about this, maybe they're lying to me about this. And people were at home more, so they were like thinking more. A lot of people don't have time to think in their daily life. And all of a sudden they're thinking, oh my God, and it led to all sorts of awakenings. We had so many people come through our doors that were in the middle of a full-blown spiritual awakening that was triggered by COVID and the lockdowns and the lies and all that stuff. So that happened directly after Borisov, which was 2I, which was the second interstellar object, right? Okay, so those are important because we're going to extrapolate out to see what could be the cultural meaning to 3I, because what I propose is that these interstellar objects are not accidents, that they are seeds, that they are sent here intelligently because our universe is intelligent. And that it's like, imagine a human taking a pill, and that pill delivers stuff, medicine, some sort of material, some sort of information to your body, right? Imagine the universe as being a body, and these interstellar objects are pills. And they're going right to the heart of us. They go right to the sun. And they go to the sun because the sun has immense gravitational pull. It's like a drain. So they always go towards the sun. Well, here's something super interesting that happens when they get close to the sun. The sun is hot. Well, it produces radiation. And it has a strong electromagnetism. So as these objects get close to the sun, they're full of ice because space is cold. So they're full of ice. And the ice creates this like protective shell for the comet or for the object. But inside that encasing is a lot of material. We've even proven that they have prebiotics. They have organic material that could be the prebiotics for life, for like, we think that they might have delivered life to Earth in the early days. So these comets are not just rocks flying through space. They are seeds that carry organic material carry chemicals and carry information. And this one came from outside of our solar system. So we know pretty much like what sort of things exist in our solar system. We've studied the crap out of it, right? Wait till I get into the the astrology part of how all this works, because it's going to really blow your mind. But right now we're kind of working our way from, you know, normal to wild. So we're starting with sciencey stuff. So anyways, so we know that 3i Atlas because they can measure the stuff that's it's emitting, the light waves and that kind of stuff, and they can figure out kind of the chemical composure of it. And that's why everyone said this thing isn't behaving normally. It's not a normal comet. Well, of course not. It's not from here. So it's going to have things that we're not used to, that we can't really predict, and we don't really know what they are, because this is an alien object. It's from, they think, from the center disk of our Milky Way galaxy. And we think there's a supermassive black hole at the middle of our Milky Way galaxy, and we think this thing came from there. So it's like the central star for our galaxy. It's a very big deal that this came from there. And people have analyzed the path, the trajectory of it, and say, okay, this must be an alien spaceship, because the odds of it coming right through our ecliptic, you know, like basically most of the planets, you know, Earth included, are on this like record shape, like a flat plane that orbit around the sun. And it's coming at like a 5-degree incline to that. So it's almost perfectly, you know, in line with all of our planets and everything. And they're like, oh, see, obviously sign of like a UFO spaceship. Well, it's not a sign of a UFO spaceship. It's a sign that this thing was sent here, you know, intelligently. And I do believe that, because I believe the universe is intelligent. So I believe that this is a pill, essentially, that is delivering information and organics into our closed system. We're in a closed system. Like I said at the beginning, we have a membrane, the heliosphere, this plasma membrane that contains us. We're basically inside of a giant plasmoid. And we also have a rocky outer shell with the Oort cloud. So we are inside of a closed system here. Things outside of that are far stranger and far different than inside here. We're in this closed system with our own rule sets and physics and laws of nature. Now, there's this new object coming in, right? And this object is bringing information. Okay, well, how do I know it's bringing information? So its tail is full of organic material. So it's going to have organics. Almost all comets do. And as it gets closer to the sun, it starts to sort of melt, for lack of better words. It heats up, right? And as it heats up, it does something called outgassing. The ice will melt, and it basically causes everything, it causes a lot of stuff to ionize. So it's going to have this dusty complex plasma that ionizes around it and creates this like field of ionized plasma around it. And then it's going to have this organic material. Well, like we talked about in a previous video, dusty complex plasma is the scaffolding that makes up the entire universe. Plasma is 99.9% of the observable universe. And this comet is bringing new plasma from a different part of the universe and is ionizing, which means it's activating as it gets closer to the sun. And then at the same time, it's activating the ionized plasma, or it's ionizing. It's activating, it's creating this sort of plasma bubble around it. The organic material starts to shed, right? So it's like when you take a pill and it gets into your stomach and it sort of fully digests and it releases all the pilly things, you know, whatever the carrier was in there. Then that's what the sun is doing. So as it gets to the perihelion, which is the closest point to the sun, it will start to shed its organic material. It'll start to shed its chemicals, whatever it's made of, whatever it's composed of, whatever's underneath that icy shell will start to come out. And as it comes out, it is now injected, infused into our solar system. And our sun has something called solar wind. Our sun produces wind, like the shock wave. We're protected by it here, but it interacts with us. You know, we have a magnetic field, the magnetosphere around our Earth that protects us. But I mean, these things do come through, and because the sun's very powerful. So now we're going to have this new material injected into our solar system right around the sun, right? Because this all happens at the perihelion when it's the closest point to the sun. And it starts to melt and shed. And it might change trajectory a little bit, because as it outgasses, sometimes it creates this force and it pushes it off its trajectory, but usually just small. But the more important thing is, this is when the pill's kind of digested and the material is released into our solar system before it zips on out of here, okay? So that's super interesting because there is a potential, I'm not saying it's going to happen because it all depends on placement and all that kind of stuff, but that the solar wind from the sun actually carries that material to Earth. And now it would be small amounts, right? It's not like it's going to flood us or anything like that, but this is alien material that we have no idea where it's from. We have no idea what it is. We have no idea what the organics are. We have no idea if there's any sort of fungal spores, if there's any sort of like living, like bacteria or microbes or any organic material that, we have no idea. We don't know if these are seeds to new life, new civilizations. We don't know if this is alien seeds. We don't know if this is like kind of taking a supplement, is the larger consciousness system or the universe delivering medicine to us. We don't really know what's going to be in all of that outgassing. We'll just have to wait and see. But that to me isn't even the most mind-blowing part. All that is kind of sciencey. Like we know those things are going to happen. That's what's going to happen. But here's where it gets super cool. Okay. Y'all ready? You sitting down? Okay. So I am a human design coach and I study sidereal astrology, and I use a new hybridized version of human design called cosmic human design, but it's sidereal human design. And so if you ever need a reading, go to my website, book one, hit me up. I would love to do that because it will blow your mind at how much information we can get out of the placement of planets, stars, moons, and all that kind of stuff. So here's the way it works, and here's how it applies to 3i Atlas. Now, astrology, especially the old kind, like sidereal, okay? Sidereal literally means star. It's based on the fixed stars. And what astrology's done for thousands of years is been able to use the star system. So basically, everything, like our solar system is like a clock, right? And everything moves around in very mechanical ways. And depending on where everything is at any given time, okay? The stars, the moon, the sun, all the planets, you can take a snapshot at any given time. Boom, snapshot. That can be decoded into pure data. And you can say, okay, based on that snapshot, these are things that will happen, either at an individual level, a nation level, a collective level, whatever. That's what astrologers do, especially like Vedic astrologers that use, they can do your natal chart based on all that. They can tell you basically what career path you should take, who you should marry, all sorts of stuff with astonishing detail, okay? And what they do is they use the placement of everything, and that is like this snapshot, and that is pure information that gives you like very concrete, data to go on. And this has been proven for thousands of years and proven again and again and again. They went off course and they created tropical astrology, which is based on the earth and the seasons, which is less accurate. But when you go into real astrology, this has been going on for thousands of years, and it's ridiculously accurate. Okay, so how's it so accurate? Well, because if you look at the universe as a computer system and you look at, everything, how precise and mechanical it is in our solar system is like a cosmic clock, and we're inside that cosmic clock. And when you zoom out, and you look down at it, it looks like you're looking at an instrument, a machine, Now, we know how everything interacts. We know that, when this planet's here and this moon's here and the sun's here and the earth's here, we know what to expect. It's all been mapped out for thousands of years. We got it down to a T. I mean, it's a science. It's a science. Don't let anyone tell you that astrology, especially sidereal astrology, is not a science. Vedic even took sidereal astrology and made it more of a science. It's more precise. Okay, so we know that. I can tell you, based on your natal chart and your time of birth, place of birth, that kind of stuff, I can tell you all sorts of amazing things about you that will blow your mind. Human design takes that to a whole another level, especially when you do sidereal human design, which I do. But just knowing what I just told you, here's where it gets really, really mind-blowing, is that what happens when a new object comes in? What happens when something very dominant and powerful and influential comes into this system? And we know this system forwards and backwards. We know all the transits, we know everything. And now all of a sudden, we have a brand new object. We don't know what that object's gonna do. We don't know what information it's gonna bring. We don't know now that that object's there when you take a snapshot, like we're so used to doing with astrology, is taking a snapshot and telling you, decoding that information. Now there's a new object there. Well, none of our models support this. We don't know what this means. We don't know what effect this is gonna have. But we can, speculate, and we can use the scientific process of astrology to model certain things. And that's what I did. I did an astrological, sidereal reading on the date that 3i Atlas is, going to be making its perihelion, its closest, path to the sun. Okay, so essentially, from the human design lens, this is how it works. And it's so fascinating. Ra Uru Hu created human design, and it's based on neutrino flow physics. So basically, this will really blow your mind. I'll do a whole video just on this. But neutrinos are what's called a carrier wave of our reality. So basically the way it works, so like a radio station, a radio tower puts out a radio signal, and it's invisible and you can't feel it. It passes through everything, right? Because if it interacted with matter, it would stop at the first house, and then the second house wouldn't get a radio signal. So it passes through everything and it propagates the signal. And you have an antenna and it picks up that signal, and then you have radio, right? Okay. So our universe has the same thing, and it's called a neutrino. Neutrinos are the most abundant subatomic particle in the entire universe, okay? If you could see neutrinos, it would be all you could see. You'd be blinded by the light. It's amazing. Now, these aren't just subatomic particles that don't do anything. They carry information, right? And they are, let's put it this way. You have 1 trillion neutrinos that pass through you every second, okay? And 70-something% of them come from our sun. So our sun is like that giant, radio antenna broadcasting the information out. And instead of radio waves in our physical matter reality here, it's neutrinos. Neutrinos are the carrier wave that carry the information to us. Now, the way things like astrology work and human design work is that once the sun emits that neutrino and it carries information to us, depending on the arrangement of the cosmic clock, depending on where the moon is, the sun is, the earth is, and all the planets and everything else, depending on that, it creates this signature, okay, this energetic stamp. And when the neutrino comes through, it carries that information, it carries that stamp. And that's how everything is programmed, okay? That's how our archetype is programmed. That's how human design works. It basically shows you exactly who you are as a vehicle. It's like a model, make a model of a vehicle. Everybody is made a very precise way. There's different archetypes, different profiles. And it does all this by looking at this map, our cosmic clock, and decoding it, okay? So, and the neutrino is what carries that. It's what transmits. It's the carrier wave that brings that information and brings it from the non-physical information substrate into the physical world. It's like a portal into the physical world, and then stamps us, and basically our body is like a radio antenna. We're the tuner, and we take that signal and we manifest it, right? That's what we are. We're a manifestation of that information. Okay. So hopefully you followed that. It's not the easiest thing to describe, but anyways, that's the way it works. So we can, by using that, okay, we'll use that as the framework. So now we have this new object, okay? So I can tell you everything about you, everything about world events and all that kind of stuff by using all the objects that are already in our solar system, because they all do what they're supposed to do. They're very predictable. Now we have this new object, okay. So what I did is I ran a sidereal astrology reading on this new 3i Atlas object at its perihelion, which is freaking October 30th. I mean, you can't make this shit up. October 30th, the day before Halloween. And the craziest thing came back. I mean, I don't remember every single thing, so I'll tell you as much as I know right now, because I have a long list of notes on this. And I'll put it on my X, and you can see the full reading and full breakdown. And it's wild. But the most astonishing thing, and whenever I saw this, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. This is crazy. So when I did the sidereal astrology reading on 3i Atlas at its perihelion on October 30th, as it's closest to the sun, it came back at 0 degrees Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is already the most mysterious sign. It basically, in this context, is reflective of death and rebirth, and why I said at the beginning about the apocalypse. The apocalypse literally means like dropping of the veil. It's basically when secrets are exposed, and that's what Scorpio represents in this sense, is that transformation, that time period where we're gonna go through a collective shadow work period, basically a spiritual awakening for the masses. And when you have a spiritual awakening, I had one, they can be intense. It's not all, roses and rainbows, because you basically realize that you've been lied to. You realize that most of the things that you believed aren't true. And maybe they're not true with like organic purposes, like people just didn't know any better, or we just went down the wrong path. And sometimes they're not true because you were like intentionally manipulated and lied to. And all of this comes flooding in when you have a sort of like a Kundalini type spiritual awakening, and it just blows the top off like a jack in the box erupting. Then all of a sudden you realize so much of what you hung your hat on, so much what you thought was real and you could trust and it was stable and reliable isn't true. You know, it doesn't matter if we're talking about schools or religions or government or belief systems or ideologies or anything. You start to question everything. You don't trust anything. And you go through a dark night of the soul period. And then on the other side of that, you know, you have your initiation, your awakening, and life gets better, but it gets dark for a bit. And that's exactly what the apocalypse is this dropping of the veil, exposing of lies, and basically shining light on the dark. And when you do this at an individual level, it's messy. When you do this at a civilization-wide level, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens. But I think we might be close to finding out, because all the information that came back when I did the reading on 3i Atlas as perihelion on October 30th is that it is going to be at 0 degrees Scorpio. Now, 0 degrees means, so basically you can look at the sky being chopped up into, you know, these sections, and each section is 30 degrees. 0 degrees is the gate, the entry point. It's the beginning of that sign. It's when you're leaving the last sign and going into the next sign. So it is the gateway into that sign. And I just thought that was astonishing that that's the exact moment that 3i Atlas is going to be at its perihelion, as it's going to be shedding all of its alien elements and alien chemicals and alien organics and creating this dusty, complex plasma field around it that, you know, stores information, transmits information, is self-organized and intelligent, which we've proven time and time again in laboratory settings that dusty, complex plasma can self-organize and can have sentience and intelligence. And when this thing activates, when it's really close to the sun, it could have a different level of intelligence. You know, people are talking about this thing could be an alien spaceship. It might be a self-enclosed, intelligent, sentient, conscious object. You know, it doesn't need to be an alien spaceship with a bunch of aliens on it that are coming to Earth to invade us. Like, that's not the way it works. It could be way more significant than that. So with all this happening on October 30th, which is also right before, you know, we got like Halloween, obviously, Dia de los Muertos. You have like they talk about the whole reason that Halloween is on that day is that it's when the veil is the thinnest. So if you're going to have this amazing event where you have this interstellar object that's the size of a city, that's going to be closest to the sun, it's going to be digesting and it's going to be shedding all of this material and everything. It's going to be inserting all this alien material and genetics into our solar system. It's happening right at 0 degrees Scorpio, which signifies major death and rebirth. It signifies an occult awakening, meaning that occult means hidden, you know, that there's going to be secrets revealed. There's going to be, you know, people fall. There's going to be possibly nations fall that are hiding secrets. There's so many ramifications happening at the same time. This is happening when reportedly for hundreds of years, people have said that that day is when the veil is the thinnest between our world and the next world. You know, the live and the undead, or the physical and the non-physical, or the physical and the spirit world, whatever you want to call it. There's a veil. There's very obviously a veil that separates our dimension and other dimensions. And that day, and for the next few days afterwards, basically from October 30th until November 2nd, people say the veil is the thinnest. It's the thinnest that it will ever be throughout the year. And this is happening at the exact same time. I thought that was amazing because you couldn't have planned it any better. So whereas in 2017, Oumuamua was pumped up to be this alien ship, and then right after that we had alien UFO disclosure, and that carried on to disclosure now. 2019 with Borisov led to COVID and the Great Awakening, and now in 2025 we have, you know, this object which could usher in the greatest collective awakening in our, you know, recent history, possibly ever, because you have all these elements aligning at the same time. You know, the magnitude of this object, the the improbability of its path and everything definitely suggests that it didn't randomly just pop up here. It was sent here, not by like an alien species, but by the larger consciousness system itself, by source, by the universe, which is intelligent. It's delivering information to us in a timely manner. None of this is random. There's just no way. It's statistically improbable that these are random events. Everyone who has studied this thing knows that it is an anomaly. It shouldn't be doing the things that it's doing, which makes you think that it's being done on purpose. And I think it is being done on purpose. And I think the purpose is to bring new knowledge to humanity. And when I did the sidereal astrology reading on it and found that so many of the elements, I mean, I'll post this on my X, but when I went through all of it, I mean, it's pages, but so many of the things talked about waking up. So many of it talked about, uncovering lies and secrets. So much of it was about the fall of these power structures and these control structures that are suppressing this information. So obviously it doesn't tell me what the information that's being suppressed or any of that kind of stuff. It can't get that granular, obviously. We're talking more about trends and behavioral patterns. But it suggests to me, and we're already kind of seeing the groundwork being laid of people questioning official narratives, people questioning everything, And if you think about it, after 2017, people that were questioning, like so many people that were into the UFO topic felt vindicated. They're like, I've been telling y'all forever that this is real. And then they were vindicated. And then in 2020, it led to, so that was like this awakening in 2017 of like us not being alone in the universe. And then 2020 was like this awakening of like, we can't really trust like the government and the health services and that kind of stuff. Because, to a rational thinker, like everything that happened during the COVID era was just completely wrong, mismanaged. I mean, fear-based. I mean, everything. People were panicking. People weren't acting rationally and humanely and with empathy. I mean, there was so much it was dystopian. It was dark. It was very, very bad, and it was being run that way from the top down. And so many people woke up and were like, whoa, I thought these were the people that were going to spring into action when things go south and save us and give us helpful information and protect us. And instead, people saw the opposite, people getting arrested for paddleboarding and people, not being able to see loved ones as they pass away and people having to wear masks outside and do so many things. We're just like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Like, these are the people that are supposed to be smart. These are the experts. So I think that period showed us that these people can't really be trusted and that we have to take our lives and our destiny in our own hands. And that was what I saw happen. And it led to this great awakening of that. Now, if we want to think about, if you want to extrapolate, 2017, the awakening to aliens, extraterrestrial life, interdimensionals, the fact we're not alone in the universe. 2020, with Borisov, the fact that we can't trust our government and control structures, and then 2025, now we're talking about possibly the fall of nation states. We're talking about, like it ramping up to the point where now people don't trust anything. And I'm not advocating for like anarchy or anything like that. I'm advocating for people like to reassess their belief systems and why they think the things they do and why they trust the people they trust and why they idolize certain people and things like that. And start looking at more of yourself. I see 3i Atlas being the pill that brings in the collective shadow work. Is starting at 0 degrees Scorpio. We're entering the portal, the gateway to Scorpio, which is the symbol of the occult, the underbelly, the death and rebirth cycle. It's a symbol of life after death. Just like they talk about the apocalypse. The apocalypse is not the end of the world, it's an end of an era. It's the end of lies. It's the end of deceit. It's the end of deception. The occult literally means to hide, secret. What we're seeing is the end of that. What we're seeing is light being shined as a disinfectant. We're going to shine so much light that there can't be darkness. And nothing scares the people in control more than this, because you want your population to be deaf, dumb, and blind. You want them to be, little automatons that go to work and just pay their taxes and contribute to, you know, your society, you know. And I understand we're all sharing the society, but do you have a say? Do you think you really have a say in your society? And you start to realize that you're just a pawn, you know, that you're not being utilized in a way that's reflective of your soul's purpose or your actual full human potential. You're being utilized the way a machine's utilized in a warehouse or in a, you know, a conveyor belt in a factory, you know. And that's what we need to get away from, is that you're not meaningless. You're not a slave. You're a fucking human being. You have agency, you have power, you have consciousness, you matter. You came here with purpose, to fulfill a purpose, on a mission. We all did. And I think that as people begin to become more empowered to that, and more aware of that, and awake to the bigger picture of life, that scares the people that profit off of the previous indoctrinated system, where people don't ask those questions, don't have, you know, self-agency, and don't think about themselves as powerful, conscious beings on a mission. And I think that's about to change. And I think it's going to be beautiful. And I understand we need people to go to work. And I understand that, you know, we learned this through human design, that there's 8 billion people on Earth. And you would think 8 billion people with agency and with free will, that this world would be insane, right? Wouldn't you? But we see the opposite. We see a very well-oiled machine. Everything works perfect. And you can say, oh yeah, it's because people need money, so they go to work. That's part of it, obviously, and that's never going to change. More so, it's because people are designed with intention. Your soul chooses an avatar, and that avatar is custom designed to help your soul fulfill its purpose here on Earth. None of this is by mistake. That's why perfectly distributed around the entire globe are the right people with the right skill sets and mindsets and archetypes to do all the things that need to be done. You know, I'll get more into this in a video that I break down human design and show you exactly how, like, reflectors are that sensor that transmits back to source, you know, what needs to be produced and distributed around Earth. It's very fascinating. But for this video here, I can just leave you with that you have the behaviors and the mannerisms and the archetype and the skill sets and the mindset that you designed yourself with. That's on purpose. Your job is to be you, is to realize who you are and then give yourself permission just to be yourself. You don't need to change anything. You're made exactly how you're supposed to be made. You just need to step into your role with authority. And I think that with 3i Atlas, as it comes through and as it sheds its material and it drops off its information that's now injected and infused into our closed system here, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as the seed to the Great Awakening. But I will preface this, I will temper this with, as someone who has gone through a spiritual awakening, who had a near-death experience, who has, on multiple occasions, intentionally, the first time wasn't intentionally, but intentionally on multiple occasions, has visited the other side, has roamed and explored the other side, and has seen the beauty of it and the scale of it, you know, and sees our role here and what it is, you know, for what it is. That it's not an easy thing for people that have been indoctrinated their entire life, that have been lied to and suppressed their entire life, have been told not to think, and sometimes had their entire thinking faculties turned offline. Now to all of a sudden contemplate all these things and to process all these things and to make sense of all these things and to figure out how to utilize all of these things and to keep their sanity. So I'm not sitting here cheering this thing on saying, yes, catastrophic disclosure, let's go, baby, because I see the flip side of the coin. I see both sides. I mean, how beautiful it can be and how destructive it can be. I also know that, like, when your body is fighting an infection and it manifests a fever, that sometimes you have to run in the bathroom and vomit, you know, to begin the healing process. And there's a good possibility that our planet, and it's not going to be uniformly spread because different places have more darkness than others, but as you start to kind of spray the roaches and they start to scramble, it gets a little weird. It gets a little messy, you know? And so as much as I think that this is all very necessary I've been given some other information that suggests that this is all happening, whether we want it to or not, that there is an intervention that's coming because we got too far off our track and we sort of need to be reeled back in. We were given every chance to do it ourselves and we didn't do it. There's managers to the system. We're definitely not the top of the food chain. And I think that this is another component of that. I think that this is sort of a, okay, you know, break out the big guns kind of a thing. Now, I could be totally wrong. This is speculation on my part. Maybe this thing comes and goes and nothing changes at all. But I don't think so. History doesn't tell us that. And my data doesn't tell me that. And my instinct, my gut does not tell me that. I think that after October 30th, you're going to see a shift in how people look at themselves. I think we're going to have a collective awakening at an individual level, and people are going to go through personal shadow work times where they start to question themselves, what they're thinking, their path, you know, all the things that have been kind of pushing them down and keeping them down. They're going to start questioning all that and sometimes rising up against it at an individual level. And then I see that happening at a group level and a collective level. And I think that this is necessary, but it could get messy. So what my role in all this is going to be is what it's always been, to try to be a positive light, try to help people navigate things with the least amount of resistance, you know, because nobody wants anything bad to happen. Everyone I know, there's some people out there that are just bitter, but most people I know, they just want to live their lives, man. They want to have friends. They want to go have fun. They want to, you know, they want to work on their hobbies and their skills. I mean, none of this means don't go to work or anything like that, because work is very, you know, important. And if you are actually living your life the way you're supposed to, the way you're designed, you want to go to work. You enjoy work. I know some very rich people that don't need to work a day in their life, and they work harder than anybody I know. Work is not bad. It's only bad if you're doing work that doesn't light you up, right? So through all this, do soul searching. Really, really dig down deep and say, hey, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And if not, change course. None of this means anything destructive or anything negative. This is all very, very positive for humanity. It's very, very positive for each and every human individual out there. But we have to navigate this the same way you navigate anything. We have to navigate it with finesse and with empathy and compassion, and we have to navigate it with a clear, cool head. And, you know, the things that I see, possibly the X factors, are as power structures and control structures start to collapse, which I do predict, I do foresee. Not saying on October 31st everything collapses. I think that this 3i Atlas is going to be the catalyst. I think it's the beginning of the collective awakening process that has been building for quite some time. That's what I see. That's just me, one person. So it could take days, weeks, months, years, decades, centuries. I have no idea. But I think that this will be the beginning. So be looking for some changes. I would love to hear your thoughts on all this. I would get ahead of the curve if I'm you and start doing this kind of shadow work now, doing this deep dive, doing this thinking. The clock is ticking. Time is going by faster. We don't have enough time to sit around and just do nothing. We are all here. We chose this time. There's 8 billion souls here right now. This is a very important transformative time in human history. This is the tipping point. I think we are here to do real actual work. You know, this is not an R&R time period in Earth, okay? We can have fun. We're gonna have fun, but it's also time to work. So let's take this time period seriously. Let's use this 3i Atlas as this catalyst for change, and let's try to direct the change in a way that we see fit as the collective, that we want, you know, personal empowerment, you know, like being able to be yourself, whatever that is, without influence from other people. Just be you and be proud of you and lead with love. Like this time period we're going into, you know, we're leading into the age of Aquarius. You know, that's what we learn with sidereal astrology, is that this is all headed to the age of Aquarius. And that is this entirely new period. Like it's totally different. And we can't go into it with old mindset and old beliefs and old control systems. We can't go into it like that. We can't bring our baggage into the new age, okay? So it's time to get rid of all that shit. It's time to do our shadow work and to leave all that stuff. Take your trash out. Take your trash out. Let's all go into the next era lighter, more loving, more happy, more free, you know, and more you. So that's what I see coming. And I understand that all that coming from a comet Sounds batshit crazy. Whatever. That's just what I think. I would love to know your thoughts. I don't think 3i Atlas is an accident. I don't think it's a random rock that just kind of decided to roll by. I don't think the timing is coincidental. I don't think any of this stuff is random. I think it's all being guided and engineered on purpose, with a purpose, and we're a big part of that purpose. And I think it's an exciting time to be alive. Holy shit, there's so much going on, friends. Whew. Anyways, please let me know your thoughts and feelings on all this. Leave comments. It helps me greatly because I read them all, and I like to put my 2 cents in and see what everyone else's 2 cents are, and this is how we learn and grow. I love reading the comments. I try to reply to all of them as best as I can. Saturday nights, me and Sarah do our live, and we take Q&A from the community and talk to everybody, and it's a whole lot of fun. So please join us for that. Share this out. The channel is finally growing rapidly, and I'm super stoked about all that. Got a lot of big things coming up. I appreciate every single one of y'all for listening, for watching, for joining me on my shenanigans, for being a part of this. The future is going to be amazing. I'm so excited. I have faith in humanity. I really do. I see big changes coming, and I'm so happy that y'all are here, and we're going to do some cool things, guys. So please share this, leave a comment, and I will see y'all on Thursday, where I think I'm going to do a deep dive into human design, since I kind of laid that groundwork out. So anyways, have a beautiful day, guys. Peace.